AI is moving into the political spotlight as we get a dueling GOP AI executive order. Welcome back to the AI Daily Brief. Quick caveat, which I will keep giving for a little while when it comes to political related episodes. Times are, of course, incredibly tense right now when it comes to American presidential politics. The AI Daily Brief is, of course, not a political show. It is a show about artificial intelligence. However, the more that AI becomes a political issue, the more that we will have to cover political issues. My promise is to focus strictly on the AI dimensions of those conversations rather than the broader political discourse. With that out of the way, just a day after nominating J.D. Vance as his vice president, it appears that the Trump camp has prepared a draft executive order on artificial intelligence. Today we're going to talk about what we know so far about that, as well as the context and where it came from. Where our story begins is last October when we got President Biden's executive order on artificial intelligence. There were a few things that stood out very clearly to people. Perhaps the biggest was the Biden administration using the Defense Production Act as justification to require that developers of the most powerful AI systems share their safety test results and other critical information with the US government. There was more that pushed people in this direction, but one of the critiques coming out of that was that a lot of the compliance requirements here were likely to preference and prioritize the incumbents over new challengers. AI entrepreneur Jeff Amico said, Biden's AI executive order is out and it's terrible for US innovation. Here are some of the new obligations which only large incumbents will be able to comply with. He continues, if you're developing a large model, you must report to the government regarding any ongoing or planned activities related to training, development, or producing your model. Essentially, public company reporting for startups building large models. He continues, if you are developing a large model, you must report the, quote, ownership and possession of the model weights of your model and the physical and cybersecurity measures taken to protect those model weights, end quote, which Jeff says is an implied restriction on open sourcing model weights. Another thing that many people had problems with was the provision that, quote, companies, individuals, and other organizations that acquire, develop, or possess a potential large-scale computing cluster have to report any such acquisition, development, or possession, including the existence and location of these clusters and the amount of total computing power available in each cluster. Jeff argues that this is treating compute, an inherently neutral technology, as a dangerous resource that must be regulated. Now, the takes were, of course, varied about this. There were many who felt like Jeff did that this was bad for innovation. There were others who thought that it was fairly middle of the road, and argued that while it's not perfect, having insight and visibility into where people were accessing large amounts of compute might be the least burdensome way for the US government to maintain visibility into the frontiers of AI development. Arguably, the next big piece of AI policy news came in May of this year when a group of bipartisan senators led by Chuck Schumer released its AI roadmap. This one was a disappointment to many Democrats. The document, as I've discussed previously on this show, clearly prioritized AI leadership over what some would have seen as AI safety consideration, leading to takes like this one from economics professor Hal Singer, who wrote, Schumer offers a quote-unquote roadmap for quote-unquote regulating AI that calls for $32 billion in funding AI development and individual sectors to develop their own rules for AI, effectively self-regulation. Bravo, this is the opposite of governing. Economist and columnist Tyler Cowen responded to Schumer's piece with an op-ed in Bloomberg called The AI Safety Movement is Dead. He argued that this represented a turning point. He wrote, Senate Majority Leader Chuck Schumer and his working group on AI have issued a guidance document for federal policy. The plans involve a lot of federal support for the research and development of AI and a consistent recognition of the national security importance of the U.S. maintaining its lead in AI. Lawmakers seem to understand that they would rather face the risks of US-based AI systems than to have to contend with Chinese developments without a US counterweight. That was very much my takeaway as well. Then, just about a week and a half ago, we got the official GOP platform. It included a short section on innovation policy that included discussions of crypto, space, and AI. The AI section read, we will repeal Joe Biden's dangerous executive order that hinders AI innovation and imposes radical left-wing ideas on the development of this technology. In its place, Republicans support AI development rooted in free speech and human flourishing. Now, of course, that on its own doesn't mean much other than they didn't like what they saw in the executive order from Biden. But now, with J.D. Vance announced as VP candidate, who has been loudly outspoken in favor of open source AI and against incumbent regulatory capture, we're now starting to get hints of what AI policy under a new Trump administration might look like. The Washington Post yesterday published Trump allies draft AI order to launch Manhattan projects for defense. The plan to, quote, make America first in AI and roll back, quote, burdensome regulations would favor Silicon Valley investors who are now flocking to support the former president. A couple things to note. First of all, we have not seen this executive order. It is still apparently in a draft stage, but that draft was viewed by the Washington Post. Some of the additional details from the Post, they say that the EO would create, quote, industry-led agencies to, quote, evaluate AI models and secure systems from foreign adversaries. And the EOs suggest that they would also launch a series of what they call Manhattan projects to develop military technology and immediately review what they call unnecessary and burdensome regulations. That is mostly the substance that we got from the Post piece on this EO. When asked for comment, the Trump campaign pointed to a blog post which said that no aspect of future presidential staffing or policy announcements should be deemed official unless they come directly from Trump or his campaign team. And a spokesperson from the America First Policy Institute said in a statement that the document does not represent the organization's, quote, official position. The big connection that the Post makes was between these new AI plans being leaked and the amount of involvement that the tech industry seems to increasingly be playing in the Trump campaign. They point to, for example, a 90-minute podcast that was just released as a discussion between Mark Andreessen and his partner, Ben Horowitz. The podcast lays out why they've decided to wade more aggressively into politics, what the substance of their, quote, little tech agenda is, their articulation of the importance of AI in America, and why they're supporting Trump over Biden. Twitter user Joyce Park summed up a lot of the skepticism out there when she tweeted, "Wow, who would have predicted that the day after Musk, Andreessen, and Thiel's boy all pledged to Trump, suddenly AI deregulation is on the top of his agenda?" Professor Ethan Mollick, meanwhile, pointed out, quote, "For what it's worth, Meta has already spent almost as much as the Manhattan Project on GPUs, inflation adjusted. And from that statistic alone, you know that this is not an issue that is likely to go away. For now, though, that's all we have to go on, so we will have to wrap it there. I will, of course, watch very closely to see if we get any more information around what AI policy might look like, either under a new Trump administration or a second Biden administration. For now, that's where we will wrap. Appreciate you listening or watching as always, and until next time, peace."